Welcome back to the shop today. Let's talk a little bit about barrel break-in procedures. Is it necessary to get the most accuracy and precision out of your rifle, or is it just more fudlore hokum? Let's talk about that. Personally, I've kind of gone back and forth on this subject of barrel break-in. When I first started shooting as a young precision enthusiast, the big push or the big suggestion was from most of the industry, most of the people I talked to in the old gun stores I used to hang out in and stuff like that down south, was that you needed to break in any rifle barrel with a kind of drawn out and tedious process of a combination of different types of flavors. Let's put it down as simply as I can, is shoot around, clean the barrel, fully decarburize the barrel, get all the copper out, clean it, and then shoot another round. Do the same thing again. Repeat that process about 20 times, 20 to 30 to 50 to 100 times, depending on who you were talking to at any given day during the, in the gun store or on the range or whatever. And then there's, the evolutions of the process from going from one round and doing that for 5 to 10 rounds, and then shooting like 3 rounds and cleaning, and 3 rounds and cleaning, and doing that for another 20 rounds, and then shooting 5 rounds and cleaning, and then 10 rounds and cleaning. And by the end of it, you've spent about $400 or $500 on ammunition, and your barrel is just barely getting broke in. And this is also after spending a small fortune on cleaning supplies just to get through the break-in procedure on a barrel. And you could end up being a quarter of the way into the life of any given barrel on any given rifle, just getting broke in. Now, I won't say that's complete hokum. Personally, I do not think that, just metallurgically, and let's talk about this from a metallurgical perspective today. As somebody who works with this stuff every day, I work with these metals every day. 416 stainless being the predominant high quality, high grade barrel steel, which I work with in my handle fittings and stuff like that for knives, and then some variant of the 4000 series steels in the 4150, 4140, Chromoly or Chromoly V type of steels that are used for what they call mil-spec or military grade barrels, like ARs and stuff like that. There are other steels out there being used for barrels to great effect, like Lothar Walther. The type of steel they use is a little bit more specific to their brand and their company, and they make really high grade barrels that are really well made, and they're really precise and accurate, but the steels they use are a little bit harder than what something like 416 stainless is. So stepping back in time a little bit to actually barrel break-in mentality, I understand overall, and I have practiced in the past the concept of shooting some rounds through your barrel to get the machining worn in, to get the lands and the grooves worn into a consistent and smoother pattern, get all the machining marks out and all that good stuff. And I can see the validity in that, just from a metallurgical perspective of actually kind of just cleaning out the bore. You can also do stuff like polishing the bore and stuff like that. There were a lot of different devices and stuff back in the 90s and the early 2000s we used to I can't remember exactly what they were called, but certain types of bullets you can shoot down the bore to clean it out, to polish it, to kind of true it or whatever, from different types of cleaning stick and rod agents to pull down the bore and polish the bore. There was all manner of things that people did back in the day to get the best out of their rifles and to clean their rifling up as quickly as possible so they could get to accurate shooting and kind of accurizing your barrel by seasoning it or breaking it in. So overall, the concept is sound to me, and it always made sense to me, and I would follow these kind of drawn out processes as I was breaking in a rifle over the years. But the longer I did it, and the higher grade barrel I actually started to purchase and use in my rifles, moving into something like the 416 stainless steel in a cut rifle barrel, versus there's a lot of different types of ways to put the bore and the rifling in a barrel, from pulling a button through a button rifle to single point cut rifling, which is considered to be the most accurate type, the most precise way to cut a rifle barrel, giving you the cleanest bore, the most consistent and concentric bore with the best accuracy, to cold forming and hammer forging barrels around a spindle that is already shaped like the bore itself, or like the the rifling should be. You just basically cold hammer forge that sucker around a die and then pull that die out, and you've got your rifling in a barrel. So there's a lot of different processes that go into making barrels and how they're cut or how they're formed on the internal not just the chamber, but the bore diameter and the rifling and the grooves and lands of grooves themselves. So there's a lot that goes into that. And yes, there are some definite needs in breaking in a rifle barrel to season that, or to, you know, knock down the machining marks, to knock down the you know, the rough patches that arise, or the, you know, just to kind of uniform or unify the barrel. The concept being so that your bullets fly down that barrel as true and consistent as possible, leading to the more precise and accurate shooting. The type of steel matters, but over the years, like I said, as I, you know, kind of graduated into higher grades of steel, I started moving away from doing any break-in procedures. I generally would just take a rifle, and I didn't notice a big difference in doing this. I would just generally take a rifle to the range and start sighting it in and shooting it, and then clean it occasionally as I was going along, 20 or 30 rounds along the way, or after each range session. I would just give it a simple cleaning, not a full breakdown of cleaning out the bore, you know, decoppering everything, using bore solvents, the whole 9 yards, and like completely stripping that thing down to the bare metal, because you remove then again all of the copper fouling that actually can help your accuracy. So some of the fouling for the pits inside your barrel and stuff like that need to be filled with a little bit of that copper deposit to kind of uniform your barrel again and make it more accurate. So that's why there's always a fouling shot. We talk about fouling shots when we go to the range. After you've cleaned your rifle, you need to foul the barrel again and then shoot a cold bore shot again after that to kind of track that and see where your barrel is hitting, make sure your zero is true. And there's a lot of evidence to support that. You know, some people don't need to foul your barrel. Some barrels will shoot great right out of the gate, you know what I mean, without fouling. After you've cleaned it, they'll shoot better that way. That happens too. But there's a lot of evidence to support that fouling the barrel, so not cleaning it over much or not cleaning it too much, or re-dirtying up the barrel a little bit after you've cleaned it to get it to shoot back in that accurate profile that you've developed for it, is necessary. I've gone back and forth. I've had guns that I've done cleaning procedures with and they've shot accurately, and I've had guns that I've not even thought about and I've just gone out and started shooting them and they just shot accurately, you know what I mean? Like, regardless of what I did to them, they shot accuracy. And there's almost no way to fully I guess quantify an experiment that would actually tell you whether or not break-in procedures, like tedious, drawn out, you know, methodical break-in procedures, are actually necessary. A lot of it's going to depend on the barrel type, the cut type, the steel type, the length, the type of bullets, the bore diameter. I think there's too many variables to actually quantify whether or not rifling or you know, breaking in a barrel using these really drawn out and specific, precise procedures to do so is necessary. You would have to take the exact same gun, have a barrel built, 2 barrels built for that exact same gun, exact same load, and exact same temperatures, time, pressure, and all those things. 2 barrels built by the same person at the exact same time to the exact same tolerances, and you would have to test them one next to the other in the same action. You know, get one on there, go through the extensive cleaning and shooting process, 1 round clean, 1 round clean, 1 round clean, all that kind of stuff, and then start gauging your accuracy potential after you met some sort of, I guess, you know, objective parameter, like, hey, we've gotten through 100 rounds of a barrel break-in, now let's start taking groups. And then you would have to compare that with, again, rechamber it again with that second barrel, hoping they're as precise as possible, and then start the process all over again, but just shoot it and clean it as you see fit and whenever you see fit, and then compare that data set after you get past a certain point. You'd have to compare the data again. I mean, it's almost impossible to conduct that experiment in a quantifiable way that would actually give you any verifiable results saying cleaning this barrel that way, breaking it in, made it shoot better versus not breaking it in. Because there's so many, even from lot to lot or bar to bar of steel, this is a bar of 416 stainless, you're gonna get variances in the quality of steel from this 3 foot section here to the next 3 foot section. So even if you cut those 2 barrels for that experiment from the same exact bar of steel and had them rifled the exact same way, exact same time, exact same machine, you're still going to get variations in the, you know, metallurgical composition of that steel as you go along throughout it. It's just the way steel works. It's not perfectly consistent all the time. And then you got to also, introduce thermal processes to that. Are you heat treating it? What level are you heat treating it to? And what is the consistency in? So here's where I've landed after all these years in this, thought processes of going through all this stuff. And just as a metallurgist, somebody who's enthusiastic about learning the metal arts, I don't know. I don't actually know. I don't actually know if barrel break-in is necessary. I think it can be useful to not track, in some circumstances, not start to track your accuracy, or not start trying to gauge the precision of a rifle platform system combo and ammo and caliber combination until after you get past a certain point of ammo down the bore. And just because it breaks in the bore, as in naturally it occurs. It doesn't have to be some specific process that's crazy. It just naturally is an occurring side effect of shooting a rifle multiple rounds. So here's what I do, and let's discuss the metallurgy first and why there's a difference, I think, in the way I think about this now versus the way I used to. I used to think every rifle had to be broke in. Now I don't think that's true. Here's why. When it comes to a higher grade steel like 416 stainless, 416 stainless is considered the premium grade, match grade barrel steel for the industry. It's the standard. It is a softer steel than what is typical in the 4150 and 4140 type of metals used in mil-spec barrels and in general as a high carbon steel. It's softer, it's easier to cut, it's more precise, and it's cleaner. And it can be heat treated as well. I've heat treated this stuff for my knife guards and stuff like that. Sometimes I can heat treat it, sometimes I don't. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it depends on the context of use for the knife guard or whatever. But in barrels, it's generally considered a good idea to heat treat this stuff and do thermal cycling through an actual cryogenic treatment. And that can make a difference too in the actual toughness and wear resistance of the steel. So you're heat treating it alone is one thing. So there's the process of cutting and rifling. Then there's the process of shaping, and then there's the process of heat treating it to a certain hardness level, and that's going to, kind of vary depending on who's manufacturing that barrel. And then there's the process of lapping it, if you're going to lap it, and then the process of cryogenically treating it if you're going to treat it. Lapping it can come after all that, and that's what we used to do to our barrels. We used to lap them. You're basically using abrasive compounds to polish the bore. 416 is an actually very soft steel. I'm going to demonstrate. It's easy to file on when it's in its annealed or soft state. So it's not overly tough. It's very easy to machine well. But then you harden it, it gets a little tougher and it gets a little stronger, and it will hold up to the resistance of a bullet going down the barrel more and longer that way. Cryogenic treating that, like with a cryogenic temper, I guess you could say, actually makes it a little bit tougher. It even draws it down even more and makes it tougher in a more uniform metallurgical composition within the steel. And in steel, uniformity in the metallurgy is what gives you precision when it comes to a knife edge, hardening and heat treating knife steels, or just cutting, machining, and polishing steel itself. The smaller and more uniform you can get the matrix within the steel, the better the steel is going to work in any application across the board. Now, taking and putting this aside, 416 stainless, you've seen demonstrated there how soft it actually is. That's why it makes a good steel for premium rifle barrels, because it's easy to cut and machine really, really precisely and really cleanly, but it doesn't last as long as something like the 4100 series, 4140 or 4150 of the Chromoly or Chromoly vanadium type of barrels. So just a quick spec on Chromoly V. It's used in a lot of the 4150 and 4140 Chromoly V steels. They're used in a lot of mil-spec barrels because they're tougher, they're harder. They're a lot more wear resistant. They take a lot more abuse over longer periods of time. You can put them in machine guns and stuff like that, and they will hold up, especially if they're chrome lined, to a lot more abuse. Chromoly V, the 4150 Chromoly V, which is what this Bergara Wilderness Sierra in 7 PRC is that I've currently got in front of me, and this is one of the things that's kind of, I guess, changed my mind a little bit recently about barrel breaking. So you're looking at a steel that contains about 0.8% carbon, 1.1% chromium, 0.15 to 0.25% molybdenum, and then some versions of it actually have vanadium in it as well, and vanadium makes this steel harder. So here's where I've kind of landed recently after experimenting with this 7 PRC. I was having a lot of accuracy issues up front, and could not get the thing to shoot well with factory ammo. And even some of the hand loads, after putting it in a new stock and chassis, recrowning the muzzle and kind of tweaking some things to kind of accurize it a little bit, or just make sure that I had it most consistent as possible for accuracy, I still wasn't getting what I wanted out of the deal. So I decided to back off of group testing and just shoot it. Just shoot it multiple rounds, not break it in, but shoot. Go to the range, shoot a box of 20 rounds, shoot 10 to 15 hand loads, whatever, just enjoy it. Practice with the rifle, get some bullets down the barrel, because it is a harder steel than I'm used to, because normally 9 times out of 10 over the last 20 years, every single barrel I use has been 416 stainless, and I have noticed those softer steels, even though they are hardened and maybe even cryogenically treated, they break in and wear in a lot quicker than the Chromoly V barrels do. And that's kind of the point. The barrel hardness has a lot to do with your break-in procedures. The barrel steel type, to me, it makes more sense to me as a metallurgist that something like this Chromoly V barrel is going to take longer to settle in, for the lands and grooves to get kind of polished or lapped out by the shooting of bullets down the bore, and then you can start to see more consistency in the precision of your group sizes. Even if they're big or small, okay, let's big or small, consistency is where things start to draw in. And I did notice that. I'm about 120 rounds into this gun, 120 to 130 roughly. And I've stopped shooting copper bullets in it because they just suck. I was getting crap accuracy in them, so leave the copper for another day. Let's say that. But I just regular cup and core bullets, match grade or hunting bullets. I'm about 120 to 130, maybe 150 rounds, I'd have to count. And I have noticed in the last couple times I've shot it, the last couple group testing I've done, a significant increase and a settling down, if you will, of the shot spread sizes. Now, I'm not shooting quarter-minute groups. I'm not shooting half-minute groups yet. I haven't got there yet. Will this gun do it? Maybe. But the machining on a harder steel is never going to be as precise as the machining on a higher grade, softer steel that can then be hardened. Chromoly V can be hardened as well. It's a high carbon steel. But it's just tougher overall, so the machining may never be quite as precise. The metallurgical structure of the steel itself, the matrix, if you will, inside the steel may never be as clean or honeycomb precise or small as the 416 stainless will be. So it's a great steel for long-term use and high life cycle of a gun, and really, really rugged toughness when it comes to just longevity, barrel life. But it may take a little bit more time to break that in, and that's kind of what I've noticed with this thing. Is like usually within 20 to 40 rounds I can tell how a barrel is going to behave overall, in general. That's not an absolute, but it's an observation, okay? Just an observation over years and years now, a couple decades of shooting and building with different types of barrels, and shooting and building multiple of each type, and just kind of practicing with multiple calibers and those kind of things. I've noticed that the 416 stainless steel barrels generally wear in quicker, especially if you get something like a cut point rifle barrel or single point cut rifle barrel. Those are very, very precise from the very beginning, and they take very little break-in until you settle into a consistent accuracy profile. Now, whether that accuracy profile is 1 minute, and that's all you're ever going to get out of the life of that barrel, or it's a quarter minute, and that's what that barrel is going to give you for most of its life. Pretty quickly in the life cycle of a 416 stainless barrel, you will see them settle into that type of thing. And this is just an observational experience, not an industry absolute. Take that with a grain of salt. People's experiences are going to vary. Now, having used recently, and in some builds in the past, used Chromoly V barrels that are maybe a little more finicky, I've noticed, especially with this rifle, it's taken longer for me to see that consistency draw into a more precise and trackable pattern within this rifle itself. And that's kind of where, just thinking about it metallurgically, I've settled on my thoughts on the barrel break-in process and procedures is that it does no harm to break in a barrel by those really tedious and extensive processes. Even if it's only doing it for 20 rounds, it does you no harm. There's nothing to lose by doing that. I think over cleaning your bore with barrel solvents and copper removers and stuff like that can degrade your accuracy and can degrade the consistency you get out of your gun and cause you more frustration in work. And I think it can be tedious and a little bit frustrating to try to work your way through these barrel break-in procedures when you may be chasing the wrong rabbit. It may not be the barrel break-in that needs to happen, you know, in such and such a way that it's so tedious and specific, but it may just be your ammo type that's the problem, or your loads that need to be chased. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to decide where you want to chase the rabbits. Overall, I'm gonna just get out and shoot that sucker and clean it. Believer, that's my big thoughts. Okay, I've kind of changed that a little bit though when it comes to the harder steel barrels like the Chromoly Bs, the 4140s and 4150s. I think those type of barrels, especially from the factory, from factory rifles that are not precision single point cut type of things, they may be you know cold formed over a die, or they may be button rifled. I think they may take a little bit more time to settle the barrel into a more accurate and precise profile. And so a little bit of a break-in procedure or an actual just seasoning time frame. So break-in procedure being I'm doing a very specific process of shoot, clean for whatever you want to call it, 1 bolt, 2 bolts, 3 bullets, 5 bullets, and do that for 100 rounds. Or just go to the range and shoot the thing and then clean it when you get home. And just do that consistently until you've gotten past 100 to 150 rounds and your barrel's really settled down. Because across the board, it's pretty easy to say and pretty easy to agree that barrels need some seasoning. Barrels don't generally jump right out of the gate and shoot exactly how they're going to shoot for the bulk of their life cycle right off the bat. There's a break-in period, naturally, because of metallurgy, because of how metallurgy works, because of how machining works. You're just gonna have to get through some lumps before the barrel settles into its profile, its actual true profile of shooting and accuracy, precision, consistency. And once you've gotten into that profile, you can, you know, stretch that out through the life cycle of the barrel, and you can track that through the life cycle of the barrel, and then eventually that's gonna fall off. It's gonna start to open up. That's what happens when the rifling and, you know, lands and grooves start to degrade and the throat starts to erode in a rifle. Group sizes start to open up and you don't get the accuracy you want. Whether that's at 1,200 rounds, 1,500 rounds, or 2,000 rounds, or whatever, or at the high end, 5,000 to 10,000 rounds, is going to depend on the steel type, the bore diameter, and how hot the bullets are being pushed through it. Something like a high-grade precision stainless steel 416 stainless barrel is not going to last nearly as long as something like this 4150 Chromoly barrel from the Bergara rifle I've got here. That's just metallurgy. This can hold up to more for longer. So a 7 PRC hunting rifle for me, I think this type of rifle with a, you know, like a magnum bore and a magnum cartridge with a medium-sized bore. It's a 7mm bore, so it's not overboard like a 338 or something like that, but it's not underboard and super tight like a 6mm or something like that. So you're not getting really hot. The 6mm, especially hot rod 6mm and stuff like that, the smaller diameters, they tend to wear barrels out a lot quicker. But something like this in like the Goldilocks range, the Goldilocks size range, not too hot, not too cold, pushing good speeds and velocities, but it's not a super mag 28 nozzle or something like that, and it's not just a small 7mm 08. It's gonna last longer than the 28 nozzle. It's not gonna last as long as a 7mm 08, you know what I mean? Like, but using a Chromoly V barrel on a rifle like this and a caliber and cartridge like this, I think is a very good thing for giving it a long life cycle. So it may take a little longer to get through the break-in procedure. It may take a longer to get that accuracy node and the precision dialed in to where it's in a settled state, but the barrel life's gonna last a lot longer than I'll ever need it to. This is not a match gun, this is a hunting gun. I'm gonna shoot it maybe after I get everything dialed in. I may only shoot it a few dozen rounds a year, and that is decades worth of life cycle out of this gun, which can probably, with the caliber, probably 2,500 rounds, I would guess, with this steel type. Now, if it was a 416 stainless barrel, you probably need less than that, because the 416 is going to wear out a lot quicker, because it is a softer steel overall, and is not going to be as tough for as long as the Chromoly B will. So that's kind of where I've landed after all the debate and the internal discussion and talking with people over the years, and just, you know, going back and forth with my own, you know, my own opinions and my own experiences and observations. Like, I think there's something to be said with certain types of break-in procedures or practices in certain types of barrels, and at the very least giving any barrel you're breaking in on any rifle a little bit of time to season well, to settle into its lands and grooves and the profile of bullet you're going to be shooting through it before you really start tracking. Whether or not you can say it would have shot better if I broke it in this way versus if I broke it in this way, it's almost impossible to tell, because there's no way to go back once you started putting bullets down the barrel. There's no way to go back and retrack or retrace. And even if you cut barrels from the exact same bar, exact same time, exact same machine, exact same everything, as precise as you can get it, there's enough metallurgical difference from one foot to the next, and from one load to the next, from one bullet temperature to the next, and one shot to the next, that it's almost unquantifiable to say, like, this one's more accurate because I broke it in this way versus this one's more accurate because I didn't break it in this way. I just shot the thing and cleaned it. It's almost impossible to tell. It'd be interesting to try to do that experiment, but it would take a lot of tedious time to do it and a lot of tedious control over the situation to try and do it. And you still may not end up with enough data at the end of it when you hit that 100 rounds or 150 round benchmark that you've called your benchmark for before you start group testing. It's almost impossible to tell if you're getting similar results out of the same number. Now, if you've gotten completely wildly different results, like you've done this test and one rifle just does not shoot no matter what, it would also be easy to cherry pick that and be like, well, see, this break-in procedure sucks, or the lack of break-in procedure sucks, and it made your rifle shoot like crap, and you should always break in. But that's a data set of one. You'd have to do the experiment 1,000 times. And who's got the time and money for that? What do y'all think? Get in the comments below. Let me know, what do you do for your break-in procedures? What have you noticed works for you? A lot of it is just a placebo effect. It's a process placebo effect for individual shooters. A lot of what we do is actually, it may or may not actually make a difference to your accuracy, but if you think it does it? Y'all let me know what you think. Y'all have a blessed day.